people mad?
Which is talking about Salem.
Oh, does the house come with a broom?
What I heard is,
Yes, each of them.
I heard Rick's a witch. That's what I'm taking out of this conversation.
No,
Are you
no,
doing?
I would never suggest that.
How are you?
Possibly his ancestors.
Okay.
Cascade.
We all are.
Yeah.
That's always a good
Depends on the
Oh,
day.
ooh, it's really
Jeez.
ugly.
How are you,
Really
Renee?
ugly.
We have a quorum, yes?
Nobody knows
we
what
do.
to do.
Yep.
How
And
many
with
do
the
you
weather,
need
is that what
for
you're
a quorum?
saying?
The light at
need
28th and
5.
Cascade is out.
Oh, it is. Oh, I came from the other way. Oh, boy. That's a bad time of day.
That's
for that.
pretty ugly.
Yeah, Chris just called. He said he'll be about 5 minutes late. I guess there's an accident on 96.
That is unsurprising. Hopefully he's driving safely and.
Yeah, I said people were still trickling in, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll give it a minute. I'll let you go ahead and get set up and then we'll,
I don't necessarily have like,
that's fine.
it's more so I just pulled up, I brought my computer in case we wanted to look at a map or something like that.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, then I guess I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. I wanted to start the meeting with a moment of silence in recognition of Gordon Corky Reynolds, who was a member of our board and who recently passed away. So I'm hopeful that you all join me in a few silent moments to give him some thoughts and prayers. Thanks very much. I'll ask Sandra to record the attendance and then we'll move on to approval of the agenda in Article 2. If you haven't yet had a chance to review it, please take a look and then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second motion.
Thank you. I think Renee scooped you on that one. So all in favor? Aye.
I,
Opposed? All right, moving on. Approval of the minutes of August 16, 2022. Not too long, so give them a read if you haven't yet had the opportunity to do so. And then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving along. This is the point of the meeting where we acknowledge visitors or those wishing to speak to non-agenda items. I'm not seeing anyone here. Do we have anyone on Zoom? All right, then I think we can safely assume that there isn't anyone wishing to speak on any non-agenda items. So I'll move forward to Article 5, which is the update on the Township strategic plan. That said, if you'd like to wait until Chris gets here to start things, we can move on to, we can take the agenda out of order if that would be preferable.
Yeah, if you guys want to do that, I can give an update, but it'd be very brief.
Okay, how about I'll move to amend the agenda so that we can discuss Article 7. And then we can come back to Article 4 after Chris arrives, since he's held up by a car accident. Anyone second that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's move on then to Article 7, which is an update on the Cascade branch of the library, outdoor gardens and activity space. Sandra.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Leave it right there. Yep, that's fine. I'll try to stretch this out a little bit to get Chris a little time.
We can just keep going after this
Yeah.
item too.
The Township Board at their meeting on August 24th did consider the use of the property for the outdoor gardens and activity space. And after discussion, the board did approve the potential use of that property according to the plan provided by the Friends of the Library, with the final approval of each phase of that plan coming before the Township Board for approval. So the plan will also be presented at some time in front of the Cascade Community Foundation as well for potential funding opportunities. And the library has also applied for ARPA funds for the different phases of the project. So
Now, I know that in addition to going to the foundation, they may be looking to us to help with some funding of the project. Do you anticipate or have any idea whether that would be something in 2023, or do you think that would be further out in the future?
potentially could be 2023. I think Vanessa, when I talked to her, she really wanted to talk to the foundation first, and then provide an update on what is going on there. I think the ARPA funds, I think there's going to be a decision, maybe November is the last time frame I heard. Does that sound about right from the county? So, okay.
I have one, so I know that they went for, I think it's ARPA funding that they're, and if they get the money that they've requested, I looked at the catalog to see, what the scope of that was. Will they still need additional funding on top?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure if they applied for all the phases for the ARPA
Okay.
funding.
Did they apply after, everything after phase one, Ben?
Yeah,
Manager-
So,
manager
yeah, so
suite.
Yes,
They
correct.
applied as a complete project using their money for phase one. And
Yeah.
then, of course, they look kindly upon it being matching. So instead of
yeah, it's for
fully
2 and
funding
3.
phase two,
Okay.
they applied as one project and were able to apply their funding to that.
Yeah. Maybe we can just find out if that,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I know that they have to give additional information on, and there was some question about that because they could get funded through a nonprofit, and I don't understand. I mean, I tried to understand.
Wait,
What
where did you read it? Was it the ARPA?
It's in the catalog itself, and but I don't understand what the guidelines are from the feds, from.
I don't
so
think they
They
understand.
make it
enough.
difficult to understand on purpose sometimes.
There wasn't real clear, like, what did they mean by, because you can get, it would seem you can get funding because you're a nonprofit, and so I don't understand that portion of it, but maybe we can kind of get a feel from them on, the additional information that they're giving to maybe complete that, because it's the only thing they have to do. So there's 3 categories.
Mhm.
They're green in 2 and yellow in this 1. So if they give additional information, they may get, and it looked like it was all the funding that they needed. So, but if maybe we can figure out what that is, and
Let's cross our fingers. Yes, Grace.
So Vanessa, this is super good because I didn't know it had the green lights. What do they do? Green, yellow, and red.
yeah,
Our bridge got the red for the type of project, the pedestrian bridge or the extension, so
Oh,
make it
no.
safe for bikers. So that's just one option that won't happen, but they're still in the running. So if the manager of this branch is transitioning into a different role and now we have a new manager, could someone reach out to both so that it doesn't slip through the cracks? Maybe it's not already.
Yeah, so we actually have kind of a transmission meeting scheduled for 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Perfect.
So we're meeting with Vanessa and Lulu just to kind of make sure all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed.
Great.
So
nice.
nothing's dropped in the transition.
Where are we losing Vanessa to?
She is going to be some type of circulation manager for the City of Holland's library system.
Oh,
Okay, oh bummer.
oh,
But the nice thing is, so they went to this new model a couple years ago where they used to just have a branch manager. Now they have a senior branch manager and a junior branch manager. So luckily Lulu's been here for a couple of years. It's a lot easier to step in and kind of, keep the thing running than trying to have to go through the application process and somebody that may not be familiar with our library.
Oh, good. That is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's keep this in mind as we talk later on about our own budget. And I mean, we're not going to be finalizing anything today, I imagine, but we'll want to, right, thank you. We'll want to be sure that we're mindful of the potential of some expenditure with this project, and we'll hopefully know more in a month or 2. All right, anything more on the library issue? Yes,
Well,
sorry.
no, I have a question. Who makes the final decision to determine what's the layout of this project? Because they gave us some, alternatives.
I believe it's the township board approves the
Okay.
plan. The DDA really doesn't have approval of the project. We would have, input if,
Okay.
particularly if we're asked to provide funding, but yeah, exactly.
Okay, just curious.
We could leverage that.
Right, sure. And it's those phases in the future that were the ones that had the most concern about, is it going, what the barrier to 28th Street is going to be like and those sorts of things.
Sure.
So there will be some opportunity to weigh in on that further. I would think.
Is the library, they like it, they've gotten the tentative go ahead, but essentially they're waiting to see if the funding for all the phases, where it's gonna come from.
So I think that the wait is probably just kind of for this ARPA section of it. I think they want to make sure that no matter what happens, that some part of the project happens next year. So if it's just phase one, then I think they'll move forward with phase one. If there's some indication later this year still that phase two funding will become available, then they'll probably plan it as an entire project. But I think that they definitely want to make sure that something happens in 2023.
Okay, great.
Do you mind if I ask if those plans are available online? Do you know?
They are.
They are.
They are.
Okay.
I don't know if they're available on the library's website, but they're certainly in the township board's minutes.
Are they the ARP? Are you talking about the ARPA?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about the
The-
library
The
plan.
library plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then,
so we actually have a project page for that project.
Oh, there you go.
You do.
So you can go in and you can see the two designs, and I think we put the survey results up and all of that. So
Perfect.
there's a section on our website dedicated to that project.
Thank you.
easy breezy. Any other comment or question regarding the library space? You need a couple minutes, Chris, to catch your breath before we loop back around. Welcome.
You know, I had plenty of time sitting on 96.
Oh, no. Yeah,
There's
well,
an
apparently,
accident in 96 in the Bell.
and there's lights out and the
Oh.
storms have
Mhm.
kind of created some
Yes.
disruption around, as it turns out. All right, then, let's move back to Article 5, which is update on township strategic plan. And it's possible that we'll be combining Articles 5 and 6, similar to what we did previously, to discuss the township strategic plan and our DDA strategic plans.
I don't have a cold anymore, it was 2 weeks ago. Obviously, still. Anyway, the update of the township strategic plan was adopted last week. It was adopted on the 14th. And so now that's the official policy of the township. Obviously, you guys are already underway with your tasks, obviously. But now it's official. Cascade.com's updated.
Wonderful.
Great work.
All right, then, moving right into our strategic plan, our DDA strategic plan.
Sure. Does everyone have this document in your packets? Okay.
It was a-
So what we wanted to do today is some scheduling and logistics type stuff and also get some key questions answered. So there's obviously 4 parts to this, right? The goals and objectives portion, the Floor Village, Thornhill Plaza, the Upper Village. We want to start with the goals and objectives, they're the guiding force of everything else. But also that's the portion that you guys have gone furthest along the road already. Michelle obviously done some work. Related to that, a logistics question. I don't think we have your document, Michelle, in Word.
Probably not, but I could get it to you.
Can you possibly?
Sure, sure.
Because we'd like to use that. Basically, our thought was that'll be our first task, is take your document, create a DDA goals and objectives draft, bring it to the October meeting. And that can be October. Get that moving along. Concurrently with that, or at least behind the scenes, because I don't know, we'll bring it to you at least whatever. We want to start on the lower village. And that's because I think there are probably fewest. Well, there's one big question, and that is whether the road commission will let us do anything. But that's not we need to answer this question before we start. It's more of we need to answer this question before we finish. So I think it's an area we can get started. We can get started with developing design palette very quickly. Our team is going to take a walk around the village area next week. We'll bring Mike Campbell, our designer, and get him doodling on some architectural requirements, comparing them to what we've got in the zone ordinance right now. And then we can talk about what our recommendations are for best practices in architecture and site design along that corridor. And whether we want to make recommendations to the planning commission to amend the ordinance based on the architectural standards that are there now, or whether you guys want to start looking at the stock grant program or something like that. Some of the architectural standards instead of carrot.
And to clarify, and this may be something that you flesh out as you develop the plan in some more detail,
Yep.
we don't have a role in modifying ordinances. So to the extent that we've got a task that loops us into the groups that do that, it would be helpful to know what our role would be specifically, like you said at the end of your statement previously, to, perhaps create a carrot
Yeah.
to, a granting opportunity or
You're-
something.
Yeah,
like that.
you're in more of a line to create the carrot, whereas the planning
Right.
commission will create the stick.
Yes.
But you guys have funded the work of, professionals to come up with these ideas that can be passed along to Brian and the planning commission for their, obviously then they and the township board do the legislation, right? So it would take, but I think that it is most effective as a carrot and a stick.
Okay.
And there'll probably be areas where we think, hey, this is an area where requiring it under zoning is gonna be difficult, but if we can incentivize it, there's areas that are the other way too. So.
And I think
this
the
is an area where
cooperation will
we
be
want some
good.
Cooperation.
Mhm.
I just want to be sure the roles are clear so that we don't overstep our power as a DDA toward,
Yeah, you guys don't have any zoning authority except anything that's granted to you by the zoning ordinance, which I don't think is.
I don't believe it is.
Some communities will say like they'll get DDA design approval over buildings in the DDA.
We went down this wormhole a few meetings ago where we started to look for language about architectural standards
You
and
have architectural standards, they're in there, they're enforced by the planning commission, and will be evaluating that. The other portion of the lower village is, what are we gonna do with Cascade Road, or how can we mitigate the issues on Cascade Road? We'll do some thinking, and I think, and this is sort of our own philosophy of this, let's come up with what we want,
Mhm.
and then we'll take it to the people we need to make it happen. So you guys are on the same page, and if the road commission says, no, let's do that. Yes,
And starting last week, so we now have a full-time township engineer in-house who came from the city of Holland in their streets department, streets and path department. And hasn't worked as much with Kent County Road Commission, but Ottawa County. So he's gonna come to the October meeting and we can ask him all the questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
that would be helpful.
Mhm. So he'll be a huge asset, I think, as far as,
I think, yes, that will be huge, because that's someone who will speak the language of the road commission.
Mhm.
So, right, and has experience dealing with the in general.
What's his name?
Eric Thorne with an A.
Lauren?
No, Eric with an A, sorry.
Oh, I was trying to figure that out as well, so I'm really glad that you asked it.
Stupid question, Chris.
It's a safe space.
That's
There's
really
some
funny.
safe questions.
And I was a little hesitant about that, but Ben assured me that he knew an Eric with an A growing up, so
All right, so
I'm joking.
I don't think I've worked with Eric in our work with the city of Holland.
Okay.
Now, do you
I'm really glad
anticipate,
you guys have fun with it.
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask if you anticipate that we put all of our creative energy into a plan that we pitch, or are we at the same time gonna kind of bookmark or whiteboard back up in the event that, let's say that our dream plan is a roundabout. Are we gonna just throw all of our effort into roundabout preparation, thinking we're gonna sell that, or are we at the same time going to also come up with, something that's not a roundabout in anticipation that it
I
gets
think
the
we
X?
will need some plan Bs,
Okay.
and that's good direction to us. I think we need a dream and plan B.
I think it would be efficient while we're, coming up with these ideas
Yeah.
to at least recognize that we may not be able to get our dream scenario if the road commission says
Well,
no.
Eric can be at every meeting starting next month. He doesn't have kids yet. And he's got a good work ethic, so he can be a great liaison between the
Ouch.
planning commission. Not that anybody, no, like all of us. He's anxious to participate and serve.
No, it'll be great.
If he's available, I would love to have him here to answer
Yes.
questions.
I also think that, as we go through it and we're looking at the other pieces, that obviously, roundabouts could be a critical part of the bigger plan in order to get something else to work. So I think we just have to think in terms of how all those pieces connect, and also help the road commission and others understand this is the why behind. We're asking for this because we've got all of these other things that cannot happen if we don't do part A.
And that's a big reason why your help is going to be so useful because we've bandied about ideas over my entire tenure on this DDA about what to do for traffic calming. And they've just been ideas. They haven't been, you know,
The connectivity.
the
hasn't been
connectivity
there.
hasn't been there. It's been, all right, we're gonna, take this piece and we know we can slow this down here and we're gonna do this. We haven't for a very long time taken the step back and talked about the why.
But I
So-
think we've got the why, but also I think if we stay at 30,000 feet of traffic calming.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a roundabout. It doesn't have to be a
Right.
bridge. It doesn't have to be this. It's just, these are options to potentially say no to, but the end goal is we want traffic calming to find that path towards the yes, because I think if we don't get the traffic calming, the lower village vision truly, we're gonna struggle for it to truly come to fruition.
I agree. I agree. And I think that's part of the pitch, so.
And I think we had a number of people during the strategic plan process, and community engagement say, can't you just lower the speed limit? And of course, we know that's not possible. The only thing we can do is redesign the road to slow people down. Then they'll lower the speed limit, right? If the chicken comes before the egg. the other way
Right.
around. So yes, traffic calming, that's what we want. And then we'll say, hey, this is our favorite scenario. And if things have to get engineered out, at least we're focused on traffic calming.
And we may find that the solution might be a weird one of where you place a pedestrian crossing and how you zone that space and where you begin to zone it. We may have the zoning incorrectly, and it may, by virtue of saying a pedestrian crossing needs to come 50 feet even further up, that generates something that has to happen within the flow of traffic. There's got to be some cause and effect to some decisions we make. And we
Agreed.
just need to be smart about.
Great.
So the next piece is the Thornapple Plaza, another one where we're gonna develop our dream and our plan B, and then we're gonna take it to, the people we need for implementation who may say no to pieces of it, but if we have a plan B, then work. Timeline wise, thinking first concept of that is probably like December, right? For that. And then we'll be into 2023 in terms of the actual interaction with property owners. I think excuse me, that one, the process is pretty clear. The outcome is pretty up in the air. We're going to see what the property owners there are amenable to, and when the private developer department with us, what you guys have been doing as far as outlining. So,
When you have a project that the government helps to benefit an area for a private developer, and so let's say it appreciates the property, when he sells that, does the government typically get some of that money back, because a lot of the appreciation may be a result of the government's investment?
yeah, I mean, I think we have to talk, well down the road on this, we're talking about how to let this is structured, right? You guys, as the DDA, always benefit from increasing property values, right? Because they accrue directly, the tax revenue accrues directly to the budget. But if you guys are actually purchasing land, or especially if you're purchasing land and giving it to somebody, something like that, you may, your duty to the residents and taxpayers may indicate, hey, we need a piece of this. We're actually going to give it all away, right? Or we're going to retain some level of ownership, or you don't need that because then you can't tax it. Then yeah, what's your share, right? So there's this is all part of the deal that we make. Obviously, your involvement would be in not to make money, right? You'd be in it to achieve the design and economic development benefits that you're seeking, right? Otherwise, you just let the developer do whatever fun they say. So, but ultimately, yeah, you don't want to be throwing money into a black hole on something like this. And I think that any money that's expended might be very careful. All right, so then the last one is the Upper Village Library area, and you may note on here that I'm not as clear on where we're going with this one. First one, you guys maybe talked about before I got here, is the library's exterior improvements. which I think is a great project no matter what, but the question is like, we said in the strategic plan, we need a central gathering place. Are the library's exterior improvements the central gathering place or not? I'm kind of hoping we can come to a decision on that tonight, but if not, then that's something we're gonna need to do before we move forward.
Well, I'm gonna complicate the question and say, do we want a central gathering space, or do we want multiple central gathering spaces in the different areas that we're developing?
Depending on the type of gathering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if we answer that question, yeah, we want several, then I think that it's an easier answer to say, yep, the library's area can be the gathering space for the upper village, but then if we're talking about Thornapple Plaza, then that's something different. And
Yeah. And likewise, if we decide yes, multiple, what would we be doing potentially in the lower village?
right,
And then what does this have to be, right?
Right.
To offer all of the amenities that we think are needed.
because I think there's no question that it is certainly, the library space is certainly going to be a gathering
Mhm.
space.
Yes.
It's going to be a wonderful resource. And when we in the past had talked about developing a central gathering space as a DDA independent from the library's current project, we had talked about doing it up here as well. I mean, I don't think we need to reinvent that wheel. They've already made such great progress. That'll certainly be a resource. So, I guess I'd like to hear from the rest of the board members. What are your thoughts?
Well, the one question I have is, I know this is outside of the DDA, but Burton Park, I don't know what when Tassel donated it, I know that he wanted it to be left more natural, but would that be a gathering place, and could somehow the DDA maybe help contribute to that? I don't know. It's getting people maybe closer to the DDA. There's a stretch there. I don't know.
It complicates matters. And something else that I know was talked about in some of the focus groups was perhaps some sort of a sporting complex out by the airport. Which is outside of our geography. So I've made your question a lot more complicated.
Parks Committee's side, especially when you talk about their task and strategic plan requiring land. So.
When I think of I think it depends on what type of gathering it is, because when I think of the Thornapple Plaza, if it's more pedestrian and biker friendly, like safer to cross that bridge over the Thornapple, more walkable area, that might be a good area for more restaurants, that kind of thing, private businesses still, but then we still have the river. I know Tuffy's there, but that's a great asset that we want to highlight, maybe. So I don't know.
So I guess the question is, do you need one central gathering place, or do you need 2 to 4 places where people will naturally congregate and have programming? Tassel Park, this facility, something on the Thornapple Plaza site that's redeveloped. Burton Park's not that far from there. I mean, are we saying is that really more of a vision than you can concentrate in one spot?
I think we should take a full step back at 30,000 feet. One, there are 2 options on the table for up here. So it hasn't been fully baked. We know that we're looking at doing something in Thornapple Plaza, and then we have the lower village area that we're looking at. We've got a lot of assets. Key question is, you got bookends. I mean, this is one bookend, and I would say down by Tuffy's is another bookend. I think we have to look at what are our goals of how all these pieces are going to fit together, where we see a lot of great activation within that space, and they all play different roles. We've got the Heritage Days. If we have something for concerts here, that's one thing, or is it just sitting area? And so that may generate a different outcome for what we were envisioning down by Tuffy's. So I think making that call tonight in absence of understanding our pieces makes it kind of difficult, and keep ourselves maybe a little fluid might be a good option as we define that the overarching goals.
I mean, I think that's also an option too, is to say like, as we work through everything else, this answer may become clear.
Right.
Well, so I'm glad you brought up the concert venue kind of, amphitheater sort of thing, because when they were presenting what 2 and 3 could be, and the thing that struck me is that this probably is the best location for an amphitheater kind of structure place for a couple of reasons. One, in terms of there's a lot of square footage out here to build something like that. And number 2, there's a lot of parking space here. And it's pretty easy to get to, pretty major intersections from different directions. And that it, would be able to handle traffic here. It would be, we're close enough to, I don't know, D&W, if people want to go get sandwiches and bring them over here, and, some other places where they could get food and bring it here if they're coming to a concert, or if they're doing children's events, or, whatever it is. So ever since we had that presentation, in my head, I've been thinking, yeah, that would be a good place for an amphitheater. And then if we can say, if we come to agreement and say, yeah, that's a good idea, then we've said, okay, we've covered that. It's going to be part of this area. And we can focus on whatever those other things are that are more fluid, kind of creating a space maybe in the lower village that does that. But I kept going through my head, where else could we put something like that would support those kinds of events? I don't know that there's any other location that's as good as up here.
But
I-
just
yeah, I
they,
agree.
and not weighing in on either of those ways, my understanding is the library had one plan, and it was the gazebo, and they thought that could have small events, and then somebody added amphitheater back in. So I just don't want that. I mean, because I spoke to the librarian before, got the presentation, didn't even know it was coming after, so that bothers me a little bit.
So
I remember seeing the plan with the amphitheater in it. though.
Because then it was presented, and I said, how did this, it started at 1. Then someone added this back
About it
in.
the
Yeah.
meetings, they
Yeah,
showed us
here,
both
right.
options.
Yeah.
Yes, it got added in unilaterally by an employee between that wasn't in the, like, they had one, and then they just wanted to pass.
They meaning the library.
Yes, with their design, and then it got inserted by staff, which I don't want making policy decision, you know what I mean? Like, and then the library's eager to accommodate, want something to happen, and they added it so.
But didn't it go after our meeting to the township board? I
didn't-
understand that
So
no
I asked
decision's been
I asked
made
the
about.
I asked
amphitheater
the
versus-
librarian, the word Vanessa, how did it come back in? Because when I saw it initially, it just had one, and she goes, so someone added it in.
Well,
that
regardless of how it
My
got
point-
in.
Is it a good thing or not?
Yeah, right. I mean,
that's really what we have to weigh on is it a good thing to have in this location?
and I think that the whole point is, we won't be able to answer that tonight. We'll have to see what develops there. And, the fact of the matter is, if we can't get calming on Cascade Road, then it's going to severely limit creating a gathering space
Yeah,
over
right.
in that
Right.
area.
Did
So
Did we ever look at street parking along Tassel Park, like either parallel or diagonal?
we did at one point, and I think that may have been part of that rough and cut plan when they did the design a couple years ago, but I don't know that we looked into it in great detail.
I
That
didn't-
should be
I
part of
didn't
it.
see it in the Tuffy plan.
Yeah,
Look at that in the lower village.
Was that in the complete streets plan?
no, that was before, that predated the Tuffy
Okay.
transaction.
Thing that we have to keep in mind is, yes, the library has a huge investment in the property, but the township DDA is basically giving them the property. So there's our investment.
The DDA is not giving them the property.
Well, the township, because this is township property, isn't it?
Access. to
So
use.
they are using township property. If they were going to develop something, they're got an investment. They probably have $400,000 investment on a piece of property. So the point I'm getting at is I think we need to take into consideration what the library wants, but also at the same time, they have to consider our somewhat opinions too, because we've got an investment in it too.
Well, that's true. And that's the reason that we've had them come present to us and they've done their surveys. And I think that we want to continue to be engaged in the project.
And they're very, they have been very
Yeah.
cooperative.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Hey, go
one
ahead.
other question I have, digressing just a little bit, is what is the definition of a meeting place?
Right?
Because,
Yes.
you know, everybody has a concept, but you know, where Tuffy is in the future, would that be a place for a restaurant on the river, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's what we're talking about in
Yeah,
terms of
in theory.
what is this? And then what does that mean for the rest of,
Yeah, I
Wherever.
recall during like the drafting process of the strategic plan that we did talk about that. Of like, what does that mean? And I remember there was kind of some fleshing out the public, and then it was kind of like, okay, we have the idea that we want this gathering space. And then down the road, we're kind of gonna decide what that actually is. And a lot of that depends on what the library ends up doing. And to me, from this conversation, almost sounds a little bit like it might end up being more than likely multiple areas, because you know, if we're talking about the bookend kind of idea, or, you know, because of the hill, maybe people might not want to travel all the way up the hill when they want to go and eat their sandwich over here, type of thing. So
Example
Right.
number one, Heritage Day. I don't remember who, but the people that were organizing it, that was them wanting to relocate just for whatever purpose down to that
The parking lot of the
corner.
church.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
it seemed to be that was preferred. So not that it's bad up here, but that's an example of, you know, different options, and they chose that as a
Or-
to gather.
right, or if we're talking about, you know, filling in the gaps on what the library decides to do or not do, then that will definitely take shape of what we decide to do, you know? So it sort of does kind of seem like it might end up shaping.
So
up.
long way around to say, we're
Renee's
not gonna
trying to
answer your
get
question,
word in.
sorry.
I
there.
have one more thing to throw in. I know that the gentleman, Dr. Erdman, who owns the gathering place all the way up to,
Literally called the gathering place.
yeah, all the way
About
up,
that,
all the
not
way
to be
up
confused
to
with-
the ice cream shop. And then he
Okay.
purchased Windsor Cottage for me. And then when he purchased that, I gave him all the property from that building all the way up to the back of my building. He's going to sell. He wants to sell. He's retiring. And that space would be such a great spot to incorporate something,
The white one?
the whole plot of land, so the whole
Mhm.
strip mall.
Wait a minute,
that whole
Yes, he wants to sell
building?
the whole
and then
building,
Down
and then-
Apple River
and then-
Drive.
Well, that's good
Windsor
information.
Cottage, and then
Yeah.
That's-
he
and that's
now
my-
has all the property from Windsor Cottage all the way up to the very back of my store.
So he
Yeah.
owns the parking lot as well?
He-
as the
that
rest of
whole
it?
lot,
all
yeah.
that
Talk
land
about
behind.
carrot for redevelopment in a
So,
manner.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's something that for
That
us
would
to.
fit right in with Tuffy.
And he just retired, and he did come to me and say, you know, I'm looking to sell. So, I mean, I think we should consider that.
Can we show what Danielle has on her screen on the big screen?
I forgot how to.
That's a
I've
great
been on the
idea.
game,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
2 months here.
Oh, do you know what he's asking?
I don't. I mean, I
Just
know
wanna
what
make sure
he's,
we know what property we're talking.
okay, I know, that, I know what he paid for my building, but,
Is that, and that's the white one, that's
the line,
yes.
lima, yeah,
He doesn't own your building, does he?
no, no.
And then the guy, there's a,
Like HDMI.
And there's the guy that is in the old, the coffee shop, but that's just, he says a little sliver of the property. So just Joe owns
Because it
behind
plugs
him, the
into
coffee shop too.
the-
now.
So does he own
I
the
don't
coffee
even
shop,
remember how to do this.
the Frosty and then the?
Buildings, he doesn't own the businesses.
Yes, but yes.
Where Jam and Bean is.
He doesn't own Jam and Bean.
He
Jam and
does
Bean's,
not.
he's a separate owner.
So just the long connected building,
Yeah.
next starting
And
on the
then,
other side of Frosty Boy.
and then along the
And I
fence
think
of the
it's-
coffee shop, and then behind the fence of the coffee shop, all the way up and around to my building, and
Oh,
then
wow.
behind the condos. up there.
Okay.
So it's a nice,
Other
it's a
ghosts.
nice,
Okay, so
Chunk of
let's
property.
so.
That would,
hit the
I
button.
mean, can I make a mark on it or not, or just kind of circle it?
Which means
Can
you
it
know,
show up
Yeah,
on our
You
monitors?
should be able to do that. Here. Let me, is your computer on?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna try this one more
There we
time.
Yep.
No, it just, oh,
Game on.
Okay.
It works.
So
It's a miracle.
Get a lottery
things just
ticket.
got a lot
look.
more
Yeah, really.
doable.
So
Okay, so where are we?
So if.
Where am I? I'm,
So
okay, I see where I am.
it should be right
Okay.
here.
Yeah,
Use your mouse
so
cursor, I guess, to point.
from that
Mention it to you.
corner,
Um,
It would be this property here.
yep, and down Thornapple River
No,
Drive.
yeah, I think
Okay.
it's just this, because that's.
So are
Gathering
you-
No,
Place.
and
Yeah.
the one, so Windsor Cottage, which is next to it, down Thornapple River
I
Drive.
think this is Renee here.
Yep, up on the hill,
Okay, so
These are the
Okay,
condos.
so
And then
Right.
this is the
So
property.
behind.
Right?
I am terrible at orienting
That's
myself
me,
with
right?
this.
You know,
me too. We should do
Well,
Google Earth.
And is it,
look at the river,
I'm looking at the river.
cross the river, that main road there in the lower right,
Yep,
that's Cascade Road.
okay.
And so.
So then
the-
we got old 28 and 28, okay.
just
Yeah.
a draw?
So coming around.
Yeah, whenever,
Good job.
Am I doing it right?
Yep,
Working.
I think
Keep
that
doing it.
this,
behind.
I think he still has this too.
Are you going next to those condos that you can't see?
Yeah, I think this is the parcel that he owns, right?
you know, if there's a hill there,
So.
that'd be a
yeah.
great place for an amphitheater.
What is everyone's obsession with? I mean, I like them too.
Yeah, I think
No,
it goes even
but-
farther.
No, I'm teasing.
But
Parking's the
naturally,
only
you know,
issue.
with the hill.
I liked the parks.
You
plan for
expect
the
everybody
Tuffy
to
that
walk
does
there.
it.
You can only come if you can walk.
I think
Or
it
ride your
goes like
bike.
That, so
That's a very
Nice chunk of land, yeah.
nice chunk of land.
Yeah.
Yeah, that lots of opportunities there.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, as anybody sees when they drive down Cascade Road, it has become a gathering area
That's their
because
current gathering area.
that is the
at
current gathering
moment.
area. That's where that is where my
And there's back
daughter goes.
parking
For ice cream. Yes, exactly.
across to go to the river.
And then she crosses to JT's. She kind of snakes around and goes to JT's.
Uh-huh,
But that's,
right.
So, can we get the internet for Kent access? Because then we could find out who's the property owners.
well, let's perhaps take that conversation
Sure.
offline. Because we're going to need to, I think that we should have Sandra reach out to the owner and set up a meeting to discuss potential acquisition. We don't want to get,
A bidding war.
we don't want to get too far into the weeds in a public session about what we might be willing to do. From a cost standpoint, that would be something that we would want to handle either in closed session or through our attorneys, so that we don't get outbid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cause then we'd have Tuffy and then
Right.
have the park, and then that would be just a great
Mhm.
Did we ever
little.
hear back from Tuffy when they reached out about possibly transferring their lease, which would give us the buyback option or no?
we did not, we reached out multiple times to them.
So how many more years they have? 10?
I thought the original was
Now
5
they-
with an extension, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they opted both.
They did? Okay.
Yeah, so maybe down to 9 now, but yeah, it's,
We'll take into account that that's potential, we call potential change area,
Right.
could be redevelopment. If we totally rethought everything about the way the village functions, I guess it could be apartment. If you wanted to say, hey, actually, what we actually want is a big green space right there, and the village pushes away from the river or something. There's a lot of, if that could potentially change, then there's a lot.
Restaurants or?
Yeah,
a
it could
restaurant?
be-
There's a lot of
it could be-
potential.
Yeah.
It would be
Yeah.
much easier to put a restaurant there than on the Tuffy location, which I would like to say no, no thank you.
Yes, and that's a river, right?
Right.
But there's just a lot of, there's a big hill, but there's a lot of space there. You could probably put some housing in there, restaurant, some sort of walkway that gets you up the hill a bit better.
There's a lot of
Just like,
opportunity.
You know, throwing things out there.
It already
So-
has rear parking
It does.
and building that's close to the road, which is a nice.
Yeah,
The fact that it has
it's-
parking
yeah,
makes my eyes light up.
So what is he owns that, what, cottage 2?
Yes,
White line.
Yes.
and when we sold it, we gave him all the property to connect my lot to his lot, because we were gonna develop it and put, retail space below and housing above there, but we decided not to. It's a great space. I still have the architectural plans too, that,
That's good to know. too.
yeah.
So we're not gonna figure all this out at tonight's meeting,
It's
No,
more,
but
yeah,
certainly,
but we're gonna have to figure out the future of this, and whether it's a private development site. I don't, you're talking about DDA, I don't know that the DDA will necessarily need to put resources into it, because it should pencil out for development.
One-
Can't go a carrot without actually purchasing it.
Yeah,
And he
there's-
approached me,
that's
he
good.
approached me. So I mean, just because we have traded properties in the past, so he's the one that came to me. So it wasn't like, I'm sure, and he's a businessman, I'm
How
sure.
about
but-
you buy it and we'll buy it from you?
Right.
exactly,
That might be
yeah,
considered.
there's
So there's all sorts of things.
all options on the table at
You
this
string
point,
it
but
along.
that's a key piece of property, so I think we need to, really
Yeah.
take it seriously
No,
and go
well,
after it.
yeah, it's good to know that.
Anyone know who bought Village Bike Shop? Anyone meaning,
Not yet.
Did they actually sell it?
They
that's what I
have,
thought, I don't know.
I checked a couple weeks ago and they were still working on the sale, so.
So was it poor business, the reason they closed?
I,
They have
slow
other
business maybe,
locations.
but the property owner was different than the business owner. So the
Okay.
property owner was leasing the building to the Village Bike Shop. He
Mm.
had gotten away from the business, so.
So what else do you need from us?
So can we go up the hill a little bit on this? Because I did want some sort of background fundamental questions about this area. So number one thing has already been answered, and that is that the library campus is township owned, correct?
Correct.
KDO
land,
is
yes.
a tenant,
Mhm.
basically. Okay, and that means,
What happened?
That's why I park in the spot for picking up books. It's my passive aggressive way to get back
Do
to
you
the
mind if
county a
I,
little bit.
like, okay, so let's get our highlight tool here. So this is township owned right in front of 28th Street, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
And obviously this is right here. Now, this is where, is this where I'm putting an X? Is that where the library is looking to put their stuff, or am I
No.
misunderstanding? Okay, where are they looking to put their stuff?
First X.
Right here, right on
Mhm.
28th Street.
But a little
Okay.
bit
Well, yeah,
closer, I
well, by
think.
the trees.
Or by
kinda
here where these
amongst
trees
the-
are.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's a lot. So there's a lot of space over there. So, okay. What about this?
I can't remember if that was part, I feel like they had something
Township.
incorporating.
It was like phase 2. or
Yeah,
something.
I believe their phasing does go into
Mm.
that,
They were gonna do some gardens
in a little
there.
trail,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so that would be part of the library's space. And then
They're also looking at
this
prairie
here.
plantings, but you have to remember that that is part of
Mhm.
the stormwater plan for
Right.
the
Yeah.
development.
Right.
So there's not a lot that can happen over there.
Yeah, well, you can see
Yeah.
the pond on the map. So yeah, they have to, okay.
So-
And
so-
then where I just put an X is actually just a steep wooded hill.
Yes,
Mhm.
which is a problem, capital P, because that's, yeah, we have tried to figure out what to do
A
with
lot
that,
of topography issues in there.
right?
Yeah, but
If
it's,
we're gonna
but
do
it's
zip lining, there's really not,
a big ski lift. But it is township owned. What about this parcel? Does anyone know? Or in this one? Like, these are landlocked.
are those township owned? I
They're
can't.
not, those
They're
are
not. Okay,
private.
so those are privately owned, but they're also landlocked. So they don't have road access. Which is probably beside the point of what we're working on with this project, but. And then this little nub,
Wait,
is
That's
that township
ours.
owned? Okay,
So that little nug is ours. And then that's right adjacent to the Nodos parking lot. And we
Yes.
had discussed at one point, putting something like a skating rink or the hockey rink or something.
skate park.
Skateboard, skate park, hockey rink and that. So we have discussed incorporating that into some sort of plan. I do not believe that's part of the library's build out plan.
okay.
Is
So
that-
from,
That one landlocked piece, isn't that right behind JT's?
Which one, Michelle?
So the two that Chris put an X on that he said,
be here.
we don't
and
know, right
here.
there,
Yeah,
the one on the left, the more square,
that
Just
one.
behind
isn't that
JT's.
JT's?
That is.
I wonder if they own that
Do they own
property.
it?
Possible
Because
they
they
do.
bought that property when they did the expansion from whoever owned that piece before. Or maybe that previous owner still kept that piece. I don't know, but
Where was the township hall going to be when they wanted to do it over here? Ben?
The
Sandra?
X, the south X on the west side of the library parking lot.
So the southwestmost X.
Okay. That's part of the reason, and I don't have this history, is how you define gathering space is important. And I think there's probably more that we agree on than disagree. I just have the bad taste in my mouth because when the township originally, not a long time ago, but when their plan or goal was to bring all the municipal buildings over to one area and fire station, buildings and grounds, all that stuff together is kind of like a central area. That's what, and then in my mind, the gathering space came around that time, the plans. So that's what I think of when I think of no, because I think that's a terrible idea to make that the government buildings the center of your community. I realize that goes back a while.
Right, that's no longer in the mix.
It's no longer
so.
the plan.
No, but I'm just saying that's where I come with like activity heavy township heavy. I guess that's what I'm just.
The
I really like
library,
the
the
li-
library
So-
brings people.
The library was
Library
a
brings
pleasant
people.
surprise, their plan.
If we can get some information from the library group. So when is Vanessa moving on?
The last day is Friday.
Oh, soon. So, and we don't know who's taking the lead on, or we do?
It would be Lulu. So she's been the junior branch
Okay.
manager for the past 2
Okay,
years.
so maybe we could have another discussion with them about what that, kind of solidify what that phase two, I think it was in phase two, and where the idea about, what am I trying to say? Not an arena.
The amphitheater
thank
or
you.
gazebo.
Thank you.
We can certainly do that and to ask for an update. I'm hesitant to say that we can solidify anything as to the future phases because I don't know whether the township board has approved the phases that are scheduled out in the future or whether that's
Did-
something that they're handling stepwise.
What did they just approve?
So they
they
approved the
could
use of
use-
the property, but it came with the caveat that when the plan is finalized, they need to
Okay.
come back to the township.
Right, so, I
Right.
mean, we can get it
Right.
for information purposes, but we
Well,
don't have
and
the
I guess
promise.
I'm wondering where their leaning is, right? That they must have some opinion on what they would like to see done,
Mhm.
or maybe they don't.
I would
But
imagine they do. I mean, they took all the surveys. Let's get that on the books for a future. I mean, we can
Yeah.
certainly have them come speak to the DDA and we want that feedback, but also it makes sense for in your role when putting together,
Yeah,
the
Right.
plan to get that information from them
Yeah.
directly as well.
yeah, for sure.
And if there are change points or what did you call it earlier? Fluctuations,
potential
change-
change area.
Yeah, change area.
Yeah.
That may be something to flag as a change area, like we're not exactly sure where the boundaries are gonna be, but we know that, this will be the boundaries of the
Bless you.
library area, bless you. We may not know whether it'll be an amphitheater or a gazebo or something else, but this is where the boundaries will be for that space.
Yeah. So, but that goes to actually another a further change area discussion, which is the rest of the township owned land,
Yeah,
right? So if this area approximately here, like this is sort of the more program space, and this is some walking trails. And so now we have more people coming to the area. Does that mean that this grass right on 28th Street could potentially be developed?
I don't know that, I thought they were talking about
that-
putting some sort of a barrier, like the
Development
prairie
with
grass
trees.
or trees or something up
Yeah.
there.
Or yeah, hell, I mean,
It's-
yeah, I mean, if that's the answer, like actually what we want is woods right there. So that we are separating our nice outdoor hangout space from the traffic on 28th Street with trees. That's another design choice we can make. But I guess my point is this little rectangle here north of where the library is already working, we're gonna have to make a decision about it, right? It probably should not just be grass. It should probably be trees or a building or
Right.
sculptures or something, right?
And
Little
that-
both
that's
because
part-
I think
in
she's talking
part of
about
their
Fourth of Ju- that's where
plan.
It is
Fourth of
part of
July-
their
It is
plan.
part of their
That's part of their
plans
plan.
already.
That's what
Okay, so
potentially is a
they have
drainage
plans going
tunnel
all the way to
potential.
28th Street.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well then, this part will just interface with them and that's their plan. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. This little guy, so from an urban design perspective, if you were to ask me like, how do we create a natural gathering place that people will go? I would have said, and we're past this now, it's not possible, but I would have said, if you can put a building here and a building here, and someday redevelop the Nodos site so there's more of a building in this area, now you have surrounded a little park with activity. right? People are going to the library, et cetera. Now, we're not doing that because this is happening. So I guess question is, it's a little site, but is that an area potentially for development? And then is this an area potentially for development or not? Or is no, we're going to keep this a campus feel, and what we want to build this out as is a bunch of recreational and educational stuff that kind of riffs off the library.
I lean toward the
Oh,
latter. I
okay.
mean, the thought of
I
plunking a
agree.
building down would make it kind of sad because there isn't that much green space.
So we
Hard
say,
to come to
okay,
Castle Park.
Agreed.
yeah.
Right.
So our
We
upper
need
village
more
area is going to be
parking.
more of a campus.
We might
feel.
need more parking. I hate to, tear down trees and put in a parking lot, as they say, but I think that we're okay on parking at least for now.
But we're
because
short in other areas,
we're
right?
short in other areas,
Castle
but
Park.
not in the library
No.
area. But there seems to be ample parking here, both in the lot and along the streets, frankly.
And I guess I feel that because they've started down this path and they've done a lot of work and the whole foundation of it has been because this whole area started with the library, and what's driving their project is people asking, already going outside and doing things and asking for space out there. And so they're trying to support that and tie it to, educational things because it started with the library. I kind of don't want to step on that
Yeah, I agree.
at all. Like, I feel like it's kind of sacred and we should honor that because that was there and they've already done a lot of work.
And they were so excited, friends of the library. It was just, and it makes sense for the types
Yeah.
of users they have.
Yeah.
No, it's a fantastic project. It is sort of making some decisions for us that we're saying, this is the library campus.
It is.
Right.
It's not going to be, right now, it's just want to be grass. It's not going to be grass, but it's also going to be green. It's going to be natural. It's going to be
Right.
recreational.
Yes.
We're not
Right.
selling it to a developer.
Which
No.
frees up all the money that was kind of possibly hanging out there for the previous plan for that site.
Yeah.
$2 million or something. I mean, that makes it,
But so pivot then to take your concept.
Yeah.
If we want to instead acquire property, whether it's the property that you've highlighted in yellow, or whether we want to acquire or work with a developer on the property across the street, that I think that would be more akin to a place where you plunk down buildings and then have people gather in the middle of them, because some of those
Yeah.
buildings already exist.
Yes, that's true.
Particularly in the, what are we calling it now in the lower village?
The lower village.
The Prevost Plaza, what do we call that now?
That's
Thornapple Plaza, is what
Thornapple
I thought its
Plaza,
name
sure.
was. I don't know.
No, I don't know, man. Whatever, I just can't, my brain,
Ben,
I'm just old.
you're so patient.
It's been,
But I mean, that physically is already set up that way.
It
It
is.
just hasn't
It
functionally
doesn't function that way.
worked that way.
and it actually even has some
Exactly.
architectural elements, like the clock tower, or like the Foaling Place has that second, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
not a real second floor, but it's got like a fake second floor that, like, there's some architecture there that's already in place. It's a matter of realigning where there's parking, where there's
And
buildings.
that's, I
which is
think,
what
where
we're
we
gonna come
focus
up
that
with.
effort.
So
is-
and
yes.
that works, and that helps us focus our
It
efforts too.
makes-
It's like, and what's gonna happen where, because I think then there's some, in this vicinity, along Thornbrook and stuff, I think there's some things we could maybe do. If the planning commission is amenable to it with zoning, so that there's a long-term turnover to get you a little more housing and stuff in this area and less gigantic Nodos parking lot. But like, that's not a proactive DDA is gonna do this or spend money on type thing. That's more of a policy on the planning and zoning side. So in that way, that would allow you guys to put more resources into Thornapple Plaza or into building out park spaces and or
Interesting.
Renee's site. So
That may be on your end.
yeah.
Everything just go dark
Our
for you.
time limit
Oh,
is
there we go.
up.
Yep, exactly. I hope you're finished because the computer has deemed it to be so. So what other feedback do you need from us?
I think that's good direction. And we're just gonna start plugging through, like I said, first priority is goals and objectives, second priorities, some lower village stuff. Third priority is Thornapple Plaza. Well, now that I say that, now that we have more direction on the upper village, maybe we'll do upper village. More Thornapple Plaza is gonna be a real heavy lift.
It is going to be a heavy lift.
Wait,
That'll
and
take a lot
upper-
more coordination and planning.
Wait, but upper village meaning this space up here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
up here.
Potentially, even though the strategic plan uses upper village, library campus or something.
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
better.
Right.
So
Basically.
Chris, I'm wondering, because you said you were gonna have one of your planners maybe walk around and, kind of get a sense of, what's already here and that kind of thing. You were talking about with the lower village. Is that,
Yeah,
did I hear that
Yeah,
right?
that's where I
Okay.
mentioned it, but we're gonna be, we're gonna have our whole team out, actually a week from Friday, in case anyone wants to join us, but, and just walk the entire, from here down the
Okay.
hill into the strip mall, behind Cascade Roadhouse, which I actually think is another aspect, though it's not technically that site, like.
Yeah,
You come out of the Thornapple Plaza into basically the Cascade Roadhouse parking lot, and now you have a really cool restaurant right there.
Yeah.
Everything's connected, but it's like, you would never ever want to walk because it's not nice.
Right.
Right, so we're gonna explore all of that and really start getting a good sense of it. And that,
So,
yeah.
the reason I was asking the question, because I'm wondering if what they could work on for us that would, I think, help us is sort of at a big picture view, look, because we've had some conversation now around what this library campus Upper Village looks like based on what's already here. The same thing in the Lower Village, so that, and so in like first pass planning, it's like big bubbles of spaces saying, what this lends itself to based on what's there and what some of the adjacent things are. If they could maybe do that for us so that we get a sense of,
Mhm.
oh, okay, this makes sense. Now we can really focus on the smaller things
Sure.
of what might go in those bigger spaces or where we've got a problem because, we've got two like totally disparate things that don't feed off each other, things like that. I think would really
Things that need to be
help.
Connected and aren't.
Yeah.
Right,
things of that
yes,
nature.
that's
And
huge.
That's what you have a lot of going on down
Yeah,
there.
right.
Is all these little elements that could make
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
a nice village, and they're all
Right.
separated from each other by parking lots. Or
Right.
like Cascade Road.
Right.
And that's what we're gonna, that's what we want to dive into with that. Now, our
And kind of diagram that out for us maybe. And
Yeah.
I think that would be helpful.
And I think
for
it'll
us.
help us identify the low hanging fruit type
Yes,
projects that we
exactly.
can, sit, because like you said, Thornapple Plaza, Lower Village.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables in play there.
Right.
And, if traffic calming doesn't work, then it might affect the way that we want to develop that
shift
plaza.
things away from
And if the private developers aren't amenable to
Right.
cooperating, then that also has implications. So,
Yeah.
yeah, having an idea of how much
Low-hanging-
additional external factors need to be aligned before we can move forward, I think it
Right.
would be helpful to know that.
Yeah.
This is Thornapple Plaza, is that following Chowhound? I'm just
Yes.
asking for a friend.
The DW.
No, I know, that's the way, everybody has a different name.
Lovingly referred to as
Thornapple
Freevo
Bang it
Plaza,
on the desk.
It's right up here,
Is
isn't that? called
Thornapple
Where are you
Thornapple?
at,
Plaza.
DW?
No, right across the street from D&W,
No,
kitty
it's-
corner.
Thornapple Brewing is what you're thinking of.
No, I'm talking about, there's the bank.
Where Sugar Mama's is located.
It's Thornhills right there,
Yeah.
the bank, and then that building right next.
For Sugar Mama?
I think that's.
Yeah, isn't that Thornapple
Are you talking about
Plaza?
where Pit Stop?
That's what it's called.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's-
I think you're right.
Isn't it?
Oh,
Yes.
Thornhills
Yes.
Plaza. Okay, excuse me.
No, it makes sense.
That building is interesting too, because that has some village character. to it,
Yes.
But it has it right on a really busy stretch of 28th Street. So anyway, we'll get into this stuff because I think that at very least, our sort of mobility planning and pedestrian planning is gonna extend that. far.
I think that solves that problem. All right, what other, what other information do you need from us?
I think we've got it for today.
Right,
Unless you've got other things
Cut
you
it
wanna
off.
share.
Can you just like fix it for us? and
Right,
look really
just
good?
come back to us and make it better. Thank you.
Figure out what the carrots are and just.
It's a big.
So as far as the property goes down there, how are we going to approach that?
That's
Which one?
not a today answer.
Wait, Rick, which
Well,
one?
no, but approaching the individual.
I think
I
there
think that's
was
part of the
agreement of offline, Sandra's gonna engage through the channels we utilized on another piece of property that we were interested in,
Right.
if
Yeah.
my
Sandra will
understanding is
talk with
correctly.
Renee.
Yeah.
and-
Okay, I
Have
just
that
wanted to make
conversation,
sure that,
yes.
that we had a clear plan rather than,
Yeah.
But yeah, the first thing we're gonna do is get all of us on the same page.
Right.
And then we'll, whatever the best way, Sandra knows it, is to approach them. We'll do that, but then we'll be coming to them with an idea, not with a vague concept. So.
This is, so we are discussing the potential lease or purchase of real property, correct? So this would be exempt from the OMA. So on the record, we're not interested in this property at all. It seems like a waste, but then you get it? You can't negotiate property prices.
Yeah, well, I don't know that
We don't have to go, we can
are
go
not
closed
recommending
session.
you guys buy
Right.
anything, but I think it's on the table, so you might buy.
It is on the
something
table,
somewhere.
But then when can we go in closed session? Because I thought it was for the discussion about the potential purchase.
So you can go into closed section all the way up to the point where the body authorizes the lease or purchase of property.
But starting now, right?
Right.
Yep,
So in
so if you guys
theory,
want
it'd be
to,
nice-
Why I'm
if you
trying
guys
to-
want to do adjourn
Okay, got
into
it, sorry.
closed session right now.
Yeah, so no, for the record, I think it's a terrible, it just doesn't
I
seem
don't think that
interesting.
we're there
That's-
yet. I think that the conversation needs to happen offline to gather more information, and then it would be appropriate to go into closed session to talk about whether we want to negotiate. Yeah?
Along the same lines, do we know who owns the American Sampler or whatever that building is?
Yes, yes.
That's not part of his,
No, he's sitting on it. He'll sit on it for a long time, I think.
Mhm.
the guy the
Yeah.
person who owns it?
Yeah.
It's,
No rush to sell. Isn't it a cat?
they've got live traps out there for cats
sanctuary?
right
They
now.
feed the feral cat. He feeds the feral
Yeah,
cats.
I don't know. It's a
All
great
right.
idea, but
All right.
Thank you
We'll
very
put that on
much.
the diagram.
You will obviously be
Feral
on the agenda for next month as well.
And if we do go into closed session for real property, I think we have a lot of potential purchases out there, so it'd be premature to narrow it down to just
Right,
one.
we're not talking about any specifics.
No.
Oh, that's gone now. All right.
bad.
Do you have anything else to report to us?
I don't believe so.
All right, thank you so much for coming. Apologies for all the traffic, and if we could control the traffic and the weather, we'd
No,
have a
it's
lot
great.
easier time, wouldn't we?
Are we a sort of potentially complicated project that could have really great outcome?
Yes.
Can you make us, can you use all that educate, the University of Pennsylvania and Notre Dame, isn't that what it is? Just use it creatively.
And I think I think our
Just
team
like
is excited about this.
I think you can, but
Because you're exactly right in describing this
Says you mow the
project.
lawn.
And that's why we're bringing on a couple more.
case study for that.
Why don't you
And
send
also
out
do
an,
draw.
either you or have Sandra send out an email about the walkabout, so if people would like to join you a week from Friday, they'll be able to do that.
Sure.
If your invitation does indeed stand as an open.
Yeah.
Can't be a quorum, though.
9:30 on
Right.
Friday morning.
Okay.
Is when we're planning on doing it. Now we schedule that around our own schedule.
Right. Are you meeting here? Or are you
Yeah,
meeting?
we
Okay,
meet here in the parking lot.
okay.
But wait, here's the problem. You have to know
Out in
who's
the
attending because
parking
you don't want to all of a sudden accidentally have a quorum. What would it be?
They're not making any decisions. They're touring the property.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Right,
all
Ben?
legal discussion.
If we do have enough that it's going to be a quorum, we can post it.
Okay,
We did that recently with the wife of the property and the Parks Committee.
I'll rescind my comment that you should send an email inviting people to join you,
So,
just to simplify
What I
it.
can do is I can add Sandra to the meeting invitation. And then we can figure out who's in,
Makes sense.
right?
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
And we'll see you, some of us will see you at the Transportation Committee
And
meeting.
transportation committee, yeah, which is, it's not on the agenda, but
No.
October 3rd, transportation.
That's
committee meeting, right?
Yes.
Nope,
So-
sixth.
Sixth.
October 6th.
I don't know why I was there.
Yep,
Whatever,
it's
it's in the
sixth.
first week of October, and I have to review the rapid data that Sandra got, so I can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you guys.
Good to see you as well.
Welcome back.
Good to see you.
I
Drive
promise I won't
carefully.
be a mute next meeting.
Oh,
Still
I-
just kidding.
We should also mention, I'm sorry.
That's
Oh,
okay.
no, we should also mention that the township board is going to appoint the strategic plan implementation committee, which will be meeting in October. Right, Grace?
Oh, so it's a carryover. So all the great stuff, I was gonna just keep it, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's the same committee, strategic planning committee, to keep everything moving once a month.
Yeah,
So my understanding was, and that's comprised of a representative from each of the boards and commissions so that there's a voice, but then, per your charge, you'll be reporting back to the
Yes.
different boards and
You will
commissions
be
as well.
responsible for setting the agenda and reporting out to the boards and commissions after each meeting. I think that's a good venue for things like discussions between DDA and planning commission and board about zoning amendments.
Yep.
right?
Yes.
You do it in an informal setting, you not step on anybody's. Foot.
the
Michelle,
hub.
I was just gonna ask if you wanted to continue your good work.
You're asking me if I want to continue? Absolutely not.
Oh, wait, did you say not?
She said absolutely. I didn't hear the not.
Okay, I'm not asking. I'm
I just heard absolutely.
So did I.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Have a good
guys.
night.
Helpful for me to shoot you an email in the morning about your goals and objectives document, or will you never send it?
I mean, do you want me to email it?
Yeah,
To you in
please,
the
just so
Word?
we
Yeah.
have an electronic
Just to
version.
you, both of you.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'll send it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, looping back around to Article 8, discuss and consider my favorite thing, holiday lighting bids. Free meeting.
Hopefully we can talk about this and then not for a little while. So.
Who's anti-Christmas and who's pro-Christmas? Let's just.
I love
flush it
Christmas. I
out.
love Christmas lights. I just don't like making decisions.
So we sent the RFP out. We received 5 proposals from 3 companies. And just as a quick refresher, we provided 2 bid options. Bid item number 1 was to just have the company bid on providing the lights at Tassel Park as well as Westdale Park. And then the alternate bid item 2 was having them do pretty much everything. So all the street light poles, hanging the snowflakes, Tassel Park and Westdale Park. I did put a breakdown of those proposals in your packet. On the flip side of that, we also received a cost estimate from Bronner's. If you remember, we need to order string lights if we want to hang string lights and not have the company do that on the street light poles. So our street lights or our string lights have fallen into disrepair due to the weather and salt. So if we purchase string lights, and then the Buildings and Grounds Department could do that part of the project, if you will. So string lights are $12.99 per strand. We would need approximately 60, maybe a few more strands. You're looking at just, around $800 for those. So again, the breakdowns for the proposals are in your packets. After looking at them and looking at the costs, staff is recommending that we use outdoor lighting for bid item number 1, which is just having them provide the lights at the Tassel Park and Westdale Park, and then purchasing the string lights from Bronner's, and then having the Buildings and Grounds Department install the string lights on the street light poles and hang the snowflakes throughout the village. There's also an option that Outdoor Lighting has provided that for an extra $540, they would do garland on the pillars at the museum building as well. So
I'll do it for $500 too.
Is it real garland? Is it like the permanent, is it
Artificial.
artificial? We already own it. Or
we
buy
don't own it.
Okay.
No, they would provide that.
Any questions, comments? I've read through all these. I was impressed with Outdoor Lighting's proposal. I thought they were the most thorough, and then I
Mhm.
was happy to see they were also local.
Yes.
The lighting on the old Township Hall down by the park, are they gonna just leave them up, or will this be something they take down too? Oh,
They actually did provide 2 separate proposals. One was to keep those up permanently. One was a seasonal proposal. I'm recommending we go with the seasonal proposal. So those would come down, January, February timeframe. So
Who did we use in the past?
AAA Lawn Care.
Sounds good to me if you guys,
Yeah, it sounds good. I think
we've got Buildings and Grounds
Yeah.
doing the,
The street light poles and then hanging the snowflakes.
Questions, comments? Anyone like to move the staff's recommendation?
yeah, can we just clarify? Which one? I know you said it. sorry.
outdoor lighting.
Outdoor lighting for bid item 1. And then the purchase of string lights from Bronner's. And have Buildings and Grounds install the lights on the street poles and hang snowflakes.
So in your chart, bid item number 1, outdoor lighting, we're going with seasonal white.
Correct.
Okay, that's the line item
$3,600 roughly.
total, right?
Yeah, that's a big difference in bids there.
What do we think about the garland for an extra 540?
About the what? I'm
The
sorry.
garland on the poles.
Is that decided
I
too?
like that idea.
I just, but they'll provide it. We don't have to buy it. They just,
Right,
yeah.
right. They would.
Maybe we
provide it.
try it 1 year and see if we
Right.
like it. And if we don't,
And-
don't
Yeah,
do
good
it next
question,
year.
yes.
It's
So-
nice, and they do the tree lighting there, and this
Yeah.
is gonna be discussed in a little bit on our agenda as well, I think.
And you said it's artificial? It's not fresh?
Correct,
Okay. So they'll take it back.
right.
All right, I will move that we approve retaining outdoor lighting for bid item 1 and to put the garlands on the historical museum, and that we purchase string lights from Bronner's.
Second.
Thanks, Grace. Any further comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, go forth and order our holiday lights.
Thank you.
Talk to you next month. All right, Article 9, discuss and consider permanent tree at Westdale Memorial Park.
So we have considered this late last year, early this year. We talked about this briefly. And we asked Thornapple River Nursery to look at the space out there, make a suggestion on what would fit. They did go out there and take a peek. They felt that an 8 to 10 foot Norway spruce would work at the park. Now, since the time they've gone out there, we have rededicated the park and we've put a flagpole out there as well as a dedication plaque. So we may need to shift a tree somewhat. We certainly could have them come back out and take a look. At the time, they felt the cost would be about $800 for planting a tree out there. So
How big
just-
do those get?
I'm sorry?
How big will those grow? How large?
I think they'll grow quite
Nor-
large.
the
you
old
said
one?
Norway?
Norway
spruce?
I guess I could Google it.
Yeah,
I think I'd like to get more information on placement and how large it'll get, given that we now have the permanent flagpole.
Yeah, it was like
Semi-permanent
we
rock
needed
over there.
that spot for 2
Yeah.
days.
I was
There
like,
are- there are some pretty trees
whoa,
over
whoa.
there already.
When I
Yeah.
saw it going
pretty
by.
There are, I mean, and they
Put it right where the tree
they've been putting up a faux tree, have they not,
correct.
for the museum
Oh,
gardens?
for Christmas?
For Christmas.
Oh, I think it makes sense to add one of that.
I
every
agree.
one. Yeah.
I don't want to pull
Yeah,
the
a real
trigger
one.
until we get
Real one.
an updated recommendation.
We can add that to the October.
Because that could be a potential like down the road Christmas lighting event.
We
right?
do already do.
Oh, but on
Yeah,
a big
yeah.
tree.
Mhm.
Yes,
Not a picture.
on the fig tree, yeah,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah, let's go real.
So,
We can get some
All right.
further information.
Thank you
on
very
that then.
much.
Yep.
all right, sorry, Ben, for making you wait this long,
No
but.
problem. A good
Discuss
discussion.
the 2023 DDA budget. Well, and this is my fault because I wanted to discuss potential other projects before we talk about potential budget because
No, that was smart.
that's kind of sequentially, that's my brain sometimes works
All right.
in limited capacity that way.
All right, so it's that time of year to start looking at a budget and everybody is jealous of the DDA because you guys have all the money, so.
Is it jealousy?
Are we like a pro athlete that doesn't realize our potential?
Did Warren Buffett give us a donation?
Yeah, yep, seriously. So, really, this is just kind of the first phase of the process, right? So a lot of what I wanted to do with you guys tonight, you guys have already done, started talking about projects or whatnot. My plan is just to kind of have an open conversation, kind of about what's in the budget this year. And then start brainstorming about if there's things that are in the budget that you don't want to be in there next year, if there's things that are not in the budget that you do want to be in there next year. And of course, start talking about capital projects, right? So 2 documents that I passed out for you. We're going to look at the budget document first, the 2-page document. So the nice thing is I am able to put the revenues in at this point because that's just a simple math calculation, and lo and behold, you guys have more money. So last year we had budgeted just shy of $1.2 million, $1,184,000. This year, $1,269,000. So again, revenues continue to climb. If you look on the last page, if you look at the bottom of the column all the way to the left, $2.3 million. That's the anticipated fund balance that you guys are going to have at the end of this year, based on the budget, right? And if you go through some of the budget numbers this year, those won't all be spent. So this probably is going to, number is going to be close to 2.5, maybe even $2.6 million, which will be the highest fund balance that the DDA has ever carried. So, so that's definitely hanging out there, and we can talk about that a little bit. The budget itself is pretty simple when you start going through it. So, you know, we have some line items related to employee in the DDA. So the DDA pays for part of Sandra's salary. So that's split between the DDA and the general fund. And then you pay for one full-time buildings and grounds employee. And both of those appear in line 248-170-802-300 DDA administrative. So essentially what we do is we calculate the full cost of Sandra's position, take half of that out of the DDA and transfer it to the general fund. And then we do an average of all of our buildings and grounds employees. So not the supervisor, but the employees. There's 5 of them. Their full cost is different, right? So some of them take family insurance, some of them don't take any insurance. So it's not fair just to take one and for the DA to pay for it. So we take the average of the 5 of them and transfer the cost of that person over as well. So we have a big engineering line item. We put this in here last year with the idea that maybe we'd be kickstarting a project. I think the strategic plan process just took a little bit longer than we all had anticipated. But on top of that, as Grace mentioned, we have an in-house engineer now as well. So while some of those funds would have gone out to a consultant, some of the easier stuff we can do in-house now. So, and we'll be tracking our engineers' cost on an hourly basis. So kind of same thing will happen with the engineer now that happens with the other positions. If that person spends an hour working in the DDA, then we'll have a line item and we'll transfer an hour's worth of their full cost out of the DDA into the general fund where they're paying for that. The benefit to you guys is that instead of paying $180 for an engineering consultant, the full price of our in-house engineer is more in the $65 to $70 an hour range. So there's instant savings as soon as you start using that person.
Were we using, what was the 75, what had been the past historical average for, and I know projects vary, but for our engineering fees that came out of the DDA specifically?
Yeah, it just depends on what they are working on that year. So like in 2020, there was quite a bit of engineering fees because they were working on the pathway that was in the DDA. So that was more. There's been years where we've budgeted $25,000 and we spent no money out of it. So, it's really just a year-to-year item. So we have a small line item for legal. Luckily, you guys aren't in a lot of legal trouble, so we don't have to utilize that too often. But if there's questions about what the DDA can or can't do, that's where those come out of. So I would caution that I know there's been discussion about updating the DDA TIF plan. And there's some legal maneuvering that will have to happen if we do choose to do that. There's certain things you can and you can't do to ensure that the other taxing jurisdiction don't opt out of the plan. So if you guys choose to go forward with that, we might use a little bit more legal fees just to make sure that all of our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted when that.
Can I interrupt you with a
happens.
question? What's council charging us hourly roughly?
$210 an hour.
Okay. So that is giving us 11 hours of legal work. So I'm thinking that we may want to increase it to the extent that we'll be discussing potential property acquisitions and the like, because we'll have counsel involved in those as well.
All right. Yep. So we'll work on bumping up that little bit. And again, we can probably balance that out of the engineering, right? Because we're
Right,
certainly
yeah.
not spending that much
Exactly.
money.
So to date, we've
engineering
paid
work.
215 in legal.
It looks like it. Yeah.
So either someone forgot to bill us or I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
We used the one Foster Swift for the potential purchase of that property that we didn't get. And then we also used the other guy.
So
for-
we do balancing at the end of the year,
Got
right?
it,
So
okay.
there will be a internal amendment when we figure out, okay, what was came out of the building department, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So with the big expenditure line item for the bus service along 28th Street. So right now, I believe our contract goes through
October,
October,
August?
Late August of
August.
2023.
late August of 2023.
So gentle suggestion, perhaps we can update the line item if it doesn't cause accounting nightmares to read transportation service.
Yep, that's not a problem at all. Numbers are,
come?
names are very easy to change. That's when you start.
Never
changing
know.
Numbers that has to be an issue, so.
Is
I
any of
guess
the Hope
my-
fund- Is Hope Network, any of that stuff fund, that's all separate? That's-
The Hope Network is completely funded through the
Okay.
general fund. Yep.
makes sense.
So I guess then my question for you would be, how do you want to see that prepared for next year's budget? Do you want me to just budget through August with the current bus service? Do you want me to anticipate what it might be after that? And all this should be predicated on the fact that the budget's always a living document,
Right.
right? So
Understood.
whatever appears in the approved document doesn't mean that the DDA can't turn around and say, hey, something came up mid-year and we're going to make some changes.
I cannot imagine that we will have alternatives priced and feedback acquired prior to adoption of the budget. So let's just, for purposes of budgeting, assume continuation of the bus service at the rates. Maybe put an escalator in for August forward, but I like to have a budget for the entire year. So to the
Yeah.
extent you can prorate.
Yeah.
Please
And
do.
I put notes in the budget too, so, if we want to notate it, correctly, we can put, a certain amount for the current approved budget. And then we can put the note for the other one can be transportation services, September through December, so
Perfect.
it's not allocated to something specifically.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
So you guys own and operate the streetlights in the district. So we have a line item for electricity and then a line item for actual streetlight pole replacements as well. Luckily, a lot of the times when there's a street pole damage, we're able to retrieve that cost from the person responsible's insurance company. So we've had, I think, 2 or 3 light poles this year gone down and
Oh,
we've
wow.
been able to do that. But every now and then a light pole goes down and you're just not tracing it back to everybody. So we try to, I think we keep 2 in stock. And then as we use them, they replace them because there can be a long time to come up with that.
Do we, I know it's going to be a rounding error, but should we increase the electricity for the simple fact we're adding more light poles?
So
Or if there's any other maintenance or anything else we need to account for?
So what we do is it gets closer to the end of the year. I sit down with the accounting staff for all the utilities, not just for this one. We pull out the last year's worth of bills, we apply an escalator, and that's how it goes into the next
Perfect.
year. So you'll typically see, that kind of bump up a little bit. I guess in this case, we'll have to be cognizant of the fact that you guys actually made a proactive change to reduce electricity costs by replacing all of the heads in the
Systems
village
and-
area with
Yeah.
LED lights. So
The inverse would be
Might be a
true.
wash. Yeah.
yeah, we could we'll budget conservatively this year, but at the end of the year, if there's a nice little savings there, we know for the next year's budget to how that operates.
Sandra.
Just really quick, and I'll get more information for the October meeting also, but we're having some troubles with some of the streetlights in the Centennial Park area, so we may need to replace some of the fixture heads on a handful of those lights. They've been out for a while, so I will get some costs. Just in a brief conversation the other day, we were thinking it might be around $75,000 to replace some of those heads, but I'll get some additional information and we can talk about that at the October meeting as well. But
Those seem relatively new. Is there a warranty?
so
claim
the
possible?
warranty period has passed.
Of course it has.
And so some of those have been out there for probably 10 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know
It seems like it was recent.
it. Right.
Apologies. Please continue.
So keeping along with utility costs, so we have the water and sewer that's related to the irrigation that we have in the DDA area. So even though we are members of the utility advisory board, they still charge us for our water use. So that's where that comes out of. You have this big line item, maintenance, repair and improvements. So there's a large portion of that that just pays for the ongoing maintenance of the DDA area when we have to do stuff. So we do, we have all the bark blown into the tree rings and, all of those just kind of general maintenance costs that come along with maintaining a large, public presence. But then there's some specific projects in here as well. So the one big project that's in here for this year is the stamped concrete ceiling. And I guess I just don't know where we are with that, if that's still going to happen this year
And
or.
not, that's not going to happen this year, so we'll have to look at that for next year.
So that's something we may want to carry into next year to make sure that that asset continues to be preserved. We seal it every 3 years, is that correct?
Every couple, yeah, 2 to 3 years, yes.
So does that line item encompass only third-party cost, or does it also capture a portion of buildings and grounds?
No, so the buildings and grounds employee just comes out of that one line item, the
Okay.
DDA administrative. So this is all
Third-party.
either third-party cost or material costs,
Gotcha.
right? So a lot of the times that's the issue. So again, I noticed this in making sure that all of the names or descriptions line up. I don't know why this says DDA repair and maintenance, Metro Cruise warm up, but this is the Metro Cruise warm up line. So the costs that come from that, a special event, come out of there. Each one of our funds has a property tax refund line item. So of course we have taxpayers from time to time challenge their taxable values. We have a great assessing staff, so we win those challenges a lot of the time. But when we lose them or settle them, there's a clawback. We have to pay back some of those taxes. So we are expecting a huge amount of them this year. Every single hotel in the DDA challenged their taxable values. And again, our assessing team did a really good job of making sure the ones that weren't appropriate were dismissed. But there were some that, our assessing staff really agreed that, there needs to be some type of settlement. So because a lot of the hotels have been in the district for so long, when those refunds are due, a lot of the refund comes from the DDA because you guys are capturing a lot of the money. So this line item is typically a lot bigger in the DDA than it is in the other funds. That being said, we're expecting this to be our biggest year at $50,000. And in talking to Jen, it sounds like there won't be any more tax appeal clawbacks this year. So we just spent a little over $11,000 on that again. So money that'll be clawed back and go into that fund balance that we'll have to have a conversation about. And then we have this line item down here for special projects, and there's a whole host of things that this encompasses. So we talk about the DDA light and the decorations that you guys just approve, different events, marketing and promotional materials, the flower landscaping project that you guys approved comes out of there. We've had this conversation the past couple of years about tactical urbanism. And as you guys figure out what some of these projects are that you want to do, an opportunity for us to do a demonstration project before we sink millions of dollars into infrastructure. So again, one of those things where the strategic plan took a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but I would think that you guys would want to continue to keep that money in there. So if there is something that you guys want to look at, do a pre-project. And then there's a similar dollar amount in the planning section of the general fund budget as well. So if there's something that affects both the DDA and the township at large, there's an opportunity to partner with the general fund on that.
Are McKenna's costs
That's
also
what I
folded
was
into
gonna ask
that?
too. Yeah.
Yep. So that was a cost this year. And then as we're plotting that out, that'll be a line item in there for their costs for next year.
Good.
If you go to the next page, capital outlay. So this year you guys had finished up the lighting project that we approved in 2019 or 2020, I think. It took forever to come in. So, look at capital outlay. We did have a pretty significant insurance claim this year on our pathway project. So there was a Pepsi truck or a mail truck or something hit a pole on Cascade Road and dropped a wire and basically charred a huge section of pathway. So we got a big insurance claim to get that torn up and redone. And so that's where that little bit of capital outlay land improvement comes from. And then, of course, we have our debt service for the Tuffy Muffler property, which is almost, it's getting to the point where it could be offset almost entirely by the revenues that are coming in. One of the nice things, and we obviously can't take credit for it because those lease agreements were negotiated before our time, but every year in February, the the amount of rent due increases by the CPI of the previous year. And we all know where inflation has been the past 2 years. So last year, their rent went up 7.1%. And I think last time I tracked it, it's going to be between 8 and 9% this year. So that continues to bump up a little bit.
And how much, what is our actual debt that is still owed?
I can provide you a debt schedule. I don't have that with me right now.
And what, do you know the interest?
Got that 21.
So yeah, so the interest amount is that at 21. I don't know what the rate is.
Are we best, at this time to pay some of it off?
Yeah.
Well, there's some tripwires there.
Yeah, I believe we looked into that and that we actually can't, was it 5 years in before we can do a payoff or?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had that lease reviewed, so.
But what was the benefit to the DDA having a balance? That protects it, right? What is that?
So there's also a benefit. So there was some legislation that was passed in 2018 that allows libraries to opt out of DDAs at any point. And the only way they can't opt out is if the DDA is carrying debt. So basically, as soon as the DDA is debt-free, the library is able to opt out of the TIF plan if they want to. And currently, the library supplies $118,000. So no matter what you do, it's always kind of in the best interest. Even though you have to pay some interest, it's in the best interest of the DDA to at least carry some debt.
So we could accumulate other debts if one is drying up.
Yep.
Okay.
We have no lack of things to spend on.
Yes.
After a conversation earlier.
Yeah. So if you look at this bottom line right here, right? So, right now, just based on the budget, anticipating $2.384 million. Really, that number is going to be close to $2.5 million. Next year, if you just carried over the budget that you guys had this year, you'd be adding another $500,000 to $600,000 to that fund balance. So there is a bit of an urgency for the DDA to start planning on how to spend these dollars. Now, that's not to say that you have to spend the dollars next year, right? So that's not anticipated. And what that really brings me to is the next page, which is our capital improvement form. So
Right.
we want to prove to the state and to the other taxing jurisdictions that we're not just holding a piggy bank, that we are working towards funding some of these projects. Cash funding is always best, right? So you don't have an interest line. There's a vested interest in the DDA of cash funding these projects. But it's nice to have that documentation showing that, yeah, in 2025, we're going to be doing this and spending $1 million on it. In 2027, we're going to be doing this. So, having, as you guys are talking to Chris and Danielle, making sure that we're populating these forms so that when the capital improvement plan is considered by the board, it demonstrates that, yeah, there are projects coming for these funds that you're saving up.
When do we have to have those projects and those numbers ballparked for you?
Yeah, so the latest would be by your November meeting.
Okay.
I would have to have something to put in there. So again, a living document, things can be added and subtracted as needed. But really after your November meeting, then I'm in the thick of the process to make sure that gets approved by the board in a timely manner.
So we've discussed before the difficulty in amending the TIF plan and how that can have cascading effects and create problems if we change how we're spending money. That does not apply to changing the budget.
Correct. Yeah, doesn't apply to changing the budget, doesn't change in applying the CIP, but your CIP has to relate to your TIF plan. So it's not recommended that you put something in the CIP that isn't covered by at least some language in your TIF plan, or again, some of the entities that might not be happy with the amount of money the DDA is capturing can say, well, you guys are planning on spending money that's not authorized by your TIF plan.
Questions?
You said that we had to have debt to retain the library. Let's say we are out of debt and then we go back into debt. Does that reactivate the library's responsibility to pay? Or once they go out, they're out?
Once they're out. And I will say too, that the the library pulling out of the DDA isn't an automatic either. So we are in a unique position where our library is in our DDA. So, the library has a vested interest in participating. If you guys decide to help fund, this project they're putting in, you're literally just putting the library's money back into the library. So, I don't want to say that, if the DDA decided not to carry any debt, that the library would just automatically pull out, but it starts those conversations.
The library is still a county entity and the county would love to be able,
So the library is a separate entity. They're totally
nothing to do with the county?
nothing to do with the county. They're funded on their own Kent District Library millage. So they're a special government agency.
Good to know.
Yep. So back prior to this building, not this building, but the library was built in the same time frame as when it went from a county library to an independent authority.
Okay.
Questions for
We
that?
give a millage to the county has a millage for the library system every year, don't they?
The library has its own millage. Yep. So they authorize that on their own. It doesn't pass through the county or anything like that.
More questions for Ben? We'll probably have more in the future. Sandra, I'd like you to, in the agendas for the October and probably the November meeting, either include a link to the TIF plan or include the TIF plan. I know it's voluminous, but if we want to make reference to it as we're working through
And
some
it
of
is
these
in your
things.
packet.
It's
tonight as
actually in the
well,
packet
but-
tonight.
packet, yeah.
But I
Oh,
will continue to,
Thank you.
I'll send it in an electronic format.
I'd appreciate that. Thank
It's in
you.
here somewhere.
Can you point
I
out to the
saw it.
relevant parts that we have to focus on? So,
I mean, I think we
The
just
money
need to-
Yes.
part.
the it's-
Yeah, where the projects
Read
are.
the
I
whole,
can-
I
yeah.
think that
mean-
shows how much I've read.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll
It's
let you
not
know
that,
the-
it's not that burdensome to
You
read.
know what? I do know, yes.
So if
It's
you
hard
get
to find
into
on
it,
our
there's
website.
basically a chart that says,
Yeah.
we're going to bury the power lines in the.
Mhm.
That's funny because that's
area.
exactly what just popped up. So you'll see tables in here that talks about different types of projects,
Mhm.
but as you look through, it'll look somewhat similar to the strategic plan in that it'll talk about different types of projects and then it'll break it down into examples. So read that part as opposed to all the background stuff.
And by the different development areas.
Right,
also.
yes. Yes. So it's pretty comprehensive. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd be pretty shocked if we can come up with something that isn't covered, but.
Yeah, so the other thing to be aware of for that plan, right, is so when you develop it, basically you do a potential amortization schedule of the revenues you're anticipating collecting. So in our case, our DDA is authorized to 2042. You figure out what that bottom line is, and then you put that dollar amount of projects in the plan, right? So if you look at and I didn't check it this year, I checked it last year, but if you look at that amortization schedule, we are at right now where we thought we would be collecting in like 2037 or 2038. So not only do you have a lot of money, but you're going to have way more money than you anticipated when you authorized the TIF plan too.
Which, I mean, some might see as a happy problem, but we need to start dedicating some of this money toward projects. So now that we have a strategic plan in place, we're finally going to be in a position to move forward
Mhm.
with that.
With hopefully community buy-in because the process was so exhaustive, the
Yeah,
foundation's there.
Exactly.
I would think so.
And if
Great.
not-
Other questions for Ben?
No, thanks, Ben. This is
Thank you.
helpful.
So with your permission, I'll
welcome.
probably ask Sandra to keep me on the agenda as well.
Sorry,
So
man. Well, we
next-
can put you, so give me your feedback on where we should put you on the agenda, because I hate to waste your time by making you sit through the whole thing. But if we're going to talk about projects where we might dedicate money, it seems out of order to have the budget discussion before.
Yeah,
that
so if it's okay with you, when Sandra gets ready to put that together, we can look and see what else is on there. And if there's things that are important to the budget discussion, I'll just have her do me after that. If all you're going to talk about, I mean, obviously it's not all you're going to talk about, but if it's just going to be where we're going to put the tree in the park, then I'll probably ask to go first.
That's perfect.
We can afford a very nice tree.
We can afford trees without invasive species in the soil of them, right?
Right.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Ben.
All right. Did you have?
Well, I just have one question because I'm actually looking at the TIF plan. There are a lot of things in here that probably will get folded into some of these projects that we're going to be
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about. There are some things on here that I think there might have been some work done on them, but can we get like an updated report on what of, that's on, so like starting on page 12. It's actually 13
I
is where
think
the
that's
table
actually a good
starts.
idea. It's helpful. I mean, without reinventing the wheel,
Yeah.
to go,
So
if
we-
someone, Sandra, could go through the TIF plan and kind of update, have we done anything on this or
Right.
no?
Status, and maybe
Right.
it's, we're 75% there, or, something like that.
Because I recall there being, like the walking path in Centennial Park, those sorts of projects where we have made some changes, improving the 28th Street crossings. We've done some work on that, so.
Can we get a hard copy?
Or could it just be attached to email?
I think it
Oh,
wasn't.
that's
It
true.
wasn't.
It's in your, it's at the end of the agenda packet, which I saw the strategic plan and I stopped reading it.
But you know,
It is in the packet for tonight,
It is.
and it's also on the township website. You can
that was
download
really
it from
hard to
there.
find.
So Sandra, could you email around a link to the
Yes,
TIF plan,
thank you.
please? Thank
Yep.
you.
And if anybody wants a hard copy, we can, it's a long document too, so I know my printer at home wouldn't print out
I know.
the document, so if you want a hard copy, just let us
It's
know.
like 100 pages.
I'll take one, even though it's kind of a waste of paper.
You can have mine.
Oh, give it to Dr.
No, I'll just get on the website.
Sure.
Yep.
Oh, I hit the button.
Other questions or conversation about budget planning? Oh, I guess I have one. We can keep these, but Ben, I'm assuming you don't need it back, but you'll want our feedback on the CIP project request form at some
Yeah.
point. Okay, thank you.
Project.
All right, moving on then to Article 11, Sandra, an update on the grant application.
Just a quick update. We've applied or are applying for 3 total. So we were awarded the Consumers Energy grant for trees. It's a reimbursement up to $3,000. Up to 15 trees must be planted on public property by November 11. And hopefully in the next weekish, those trees will start to go on the ground. Been applied for the DTE grant, and I believe that application is still pending.
Yeah, so last I heard, they said they were gonna make an announcement in September, but September is over half over, so.
So we'll see. Keep you posted. The other one is the DNR Community Forestry Grant. And I am currently working on that application. It is due this Friday. If awarded, the trees must be planted by next September. This one may be a little more tricky. They do ask that we demonstrate a connection with a documented plan or management strategy, like a forestry management strategy. So we don't have that. We're applying for it anyway. We'll see what happens.
Who would
So
be the appropriate, the Parks Committee talked about that today, and they're familiar with it as like a prerequisite to applying for grants, but who should we assign that to if it's something that,
what committee or parks might know?
I'm just not familiar with the grant process as much, but it was discussed, like, they knew that you needed that, and the municipality needed that as a prerequisite for a lot of state grants, so
So maybe they provide or work on that plan
the
and
Parks
get that
Committee,
plan
but
in
the Parks
place.
Committee is volunteer residents like this, so they would
They're
do
not
it.
gonna have a forestry plan.
No, so it would be who at the staff level can prepare the necessary document.
Well, I think that the thought
maybe-
is through the strategic plan, if we're doing development of any of the areas, it might be part of that.
Meaning we'd pay McKenna,
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, obviously not by Friday, but
Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, so typically for a plan of that, there's a lot of technical work that goes into it, so you typically bring in a consultant. In fact, with the grant that they're talking about, one of the things you can apply for is to develop the plan. So,
Oh,
Wait,
you know,
can we
there can,
apply that by, to help develop the plan for grant funds?
I'd have to look and see what those, it'd have to be pretty quick turnaround. I'm not sure. I'll have to research it really fast and see what the requirements are for that. So.
yeah, we can take a look at that.
take your best shot. We may be in a better position to get this one next year when we have more of a plan
in
pushed
place.
forward with some of these things.
Right.
But do you think there may be funds available to create a plan that doesn't, that'd be great.
you can use the grant money. You can actually apply for the
it's not-
You
grant
can
to
apply for
actually
the grant
develop
to
the
put the
plan.
plan together, so then you can apply for the
Apply for
grants
the other
again to
grant
apply
in the
for
next
trees.
Got it. Okay,
And is,
then.
yeah, and there may be some overlap with what
Yeah.
the parks
Well, right.
plan.
But even if the grant doesn't come through, I mean, we can look at just funding a plan, we can, put together, staff can work on the RFP to get that consulted in, but there's no staff members that has the expertise really to put the
Yeah,
plan together.
Right.
Right.
Other grant applications that we should be aware of?
That is everything at this time.
Alrighty, moving on then to Article 12, any other business?
Next meeting, October 18th. In the packet are the approved minutes from the August board meetings. We do have to have our second informational meeting for 2022. I was going to plan that for the October meeting if the board is good with that.
Let's try to plan it at a meeting or where we don't have a ton of substance. So do you think that, I'm trying to think
October,
about strategic
November.
plan and budget and everything. Like, I'm guessing we're going to be more prepared to do more substantive work in November than October, right?
Mhm.
We can put it on the November.
Seems about right.
Okay.
Wait, does that
Well, no,
mean
no,
that
no. I want the
October-
informational meeting where we have a light substantive
Yeah.
load. As opposed
So
to,
we're gonna
creating a
push it out.
6-hour meeting. So
Right.
if you think that October is going to be a heavy substantive meeting for us, we may want the informational meeting in November.
Right.
Follow what I'm saying?
I'm following you.
Okay.
But wasn't it just opposite? It's probably gonna be more in November, so we do it in October? I know.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm wondering. I mean,
I think I
depends
was
on
thinking the
how-
opposite of what you were saying, so.
Right. Well, I suspect that we'll.
I'll
have a
look
lot-
at what we have lined up for October. I mean, I've written down, obviously we'll have strategic plan.
You might speak with Chris and get his
information.
opinion on that because
So-
I suspect he will certainly have something to report in October, but he may have,
Yeah.
November may be a more reasonable deadline for him to get us more
Yeah.
information to discuss.
Yeah, between that and the budget, which could be a conversation as well,
Right.
so.
And
Well,
those will both be
because
the
I do
same
have
meeting.
noticing requirements, so I'll have to figure
Right.
that out.
I mean,
fairly
I'm
quickly.
inclined, I'm inclined to have the informational meeting in October, thinking that November is going to be a big meeting for us with a lot of these other issues.
Because it's gonna take him, yes,
Right.
time to present.
And generally,
Yes.
those are fairly quick as well.
The
so.
informational
but-
meeting, everybody here's been through an informational meeting.
Yeah.
They're quick.
I'll look at the schedule and agendas and
Great. Any other items?
just the transportation committee meeting
right, I'm
on
sorry.
October 6th.
Anything else?
I just ask a quick question.
Yes,
Quick
sir.
question. Jessica is going to start working on the 2023 schedule. Does DDA want to continue to meet at the same time, same place? Or are you guys considering a conversation about a different meeting time or a different meeting day?
I prefer to stick to this schedule unless there's a substantive reason to change. I don't know that a change would affect Rishi's availability. I
Yeah,
think other
I don't
days,
think
same
so.
problem
He's-
other days.
That's just a staffing labor problem.
Yes, please keep to the schedule.
Great, thank you.
I had an afterthought on the budget as well, and this, I guess I'm gonna lump in under other business. Given that our DDA strategic plan is going to involve encouraging additional educational opportunities for the board, you might want to look into bumping that figure up, because I don't know that we've pushed that education so much, so,
It's good
we may
feedback.
need-
I'll make sure that happens.
yeah, thanks. Other business? All right.
Right, possible projects, but I don't want to keep us here long. I can just rattle them out. We don't have to flush them out.
Possible projects?
Issues, projects, yes, just to bring to the table, we don't have to discuss
Like having to do with the strategic plan or?
DDA related specifics. So the building the grounds, the crew approached me with, when they're out there doing the medians, the grass strips, I think on 28. Said they had asked about it a little in the past, so Ben, Sandra, you may have know more about it, but basically they would like a brick border to give them a little bit of a buffer between traffic for safety. And then I think our insurance carrier was gonna look into that also, or made that recommendation. So that's one potential project that I guess has been on their desire list for a long time, but hasn't gone anywhere. Wouldn't be huge. And then someone was talking about, it was a trustee, they went to Rockford and they had this Where's Waldo in the local businesses. I guess that was like a fun thing. He said, I've been going in stores that I've never been to before, but it sounded like kind of a fun incentive to get into businesses. And then I'm curious, we can talk about it more. I got a couple calls from a couple business owners, but they're like a warehouse and like an auto supplier, but it's near, kind of in your neck of the woods, Scott, about, the higher crime and stuff that's, I'm assuming, related to the hotels. And so I was curious if you have thoughts or concerns or needs as a business owner. Like, for example, we have lots of money in our budget that we, at the township level, funded specific targeted increased patrols hourly with the sheriff's department. And I just would be curious if there's interest.
I think it's worthy of discussion with some public comment on that, where are we seeing instances, is it perception or is it reality? I would say, I think we do have an issue in that corridor. And it's always welcomed where the more resources are put forth to help mitigate those issues. We're seeing a lot of transient individuals in that area, and we've had, we call Kent County Sheriff's Department probably once every 3 weeks with an incident, or just ourselves.
Just nothing but cakes.
Mhm.
So she
So
had a
the
list.
question
too.
would be, our tolerance level's low. I'm just like, you know, and we've worked with, we've worked with Sandra and also the sheriff's deputy that is assigned to, I think, Omar. So they've told us, keep calling, but there is definitely a challenge in that area.
Yeah,
And I couldn't tell you if number of calls that the fire department's receiving for overdoses in that hotel corridor, have they subsided? Have they increased, stayed the same? I think that's a leading indicator of what is the problem being solved, or do we need to apply more resources to it?
So that's something that's a little bit outside. It seems like maybe that isn't covered by the strategic plan. So let's maybe add as an agenda item to our meetings, a topic to discuss further steps. But yeah, gathering that public input, I think would be important so that we
I
can,
think we need to take a step back and what are the facts?
right,
And then, because I can tell you what we're doing, but I can't tell you what our peers are doing in the area. And
right.
let's understand and then create a plan for it, as opposed to remove, like, say, my emotion towards it.
Right,
Does that make sense?
mhm.
totally.
And there's only limited, I mean, we can't solve, there's only so much we can do, but
No, but I think if we have if we have a plan, are the resources that we are applying, are they working or not? And if they aren't, what are we've got to solve for it. So what are our additional plans?
mhm.
And does that then, because there's no line item in the budget for the DDA. So if we decided to either amp up or provide or whatever that is for the businesses in the district, whether that's security or patrol, whatever that is, would we have a separate line? Would we need a separate line item in here for that?
Yeah, we
Right.
would do that just to demonstrate how those funds are being
Yeah.
spent, so.
Right.
And I recall the question of safety being part of the strategic planning process. So it may well be folded into one of those things, but I can't
I mean,
remember.
if we think about what our primary mission is, to make sure that the property values are staying,
I agree.
That, right? It's a big piece of
To
that.
promote business, and if the businesses are safe,
Yeah, right.
That's-
People will come.
In that corridor, I think once we look at the numbers, we will probably see that we do have a problem.
Yeah.
No, we can already tell you,
Pretty
because
clear.
Ben and I can already, the sheriffs and the fire department, we have a problem. It's just
Right,
hard to
let's-
fix.
is it
Let's get-
hotels on both sides of the highway, or?
It depends, it kind of varies with who's managing
Yeah.
the hotel.
There's a lot
It
of.
moves, right?
There's a lot of variables that go into that, and the management is a key piece of it.
Okay,
The best example is for the roadway in, which used to be the Super 8 and the Motel 6, the one that's on the corner of Patterson and Cascade Road. That for the longest time was all of our calls went there, all the drugs, all the prostitution, everything. And the managers literally switched out every 3 weeks. They would bring in a manager, they would throw their hands up and they would leave, right? So At some point, the ownership of that building changed and they dedicated resources to the management, and our sheriff department worked with them, and they got better lighting and they got cameras, and they stopped taking cash for rooms. They had to do credit cards. And then all of a sudden right now, that one's not the problem, but then the problems moved to the Red Roof Inn because they were struggling. And when the Road Roof Inn came up, now it moves to a different one. The idea is eventually we want them to move the other way down 28th Street. But that takes a lot of resources. I mean, we had, at times, we had our community resource officer just dedicated to basically meeting with the hotels, and it's not really what that person's supposed to do. They're supposed to be out in the community, not just the hotel drug use person. So I think, those problems ebb and flow. It was really bad during the pandemic. It got better for a while. The township did throw additional resources at it. But I think it probably behooves the DDA to have a broad conversation about what you guys want your role to be in making in crime and safety and prevention.
Safety
in
and
that
security.
area.
And let's fold that into our conversation with Chris as we're doing our DDA goal planning as well, so that we're, looking at it very broadly. And the other two items, Grace, that you raised, I think are also very good ones. And I think they fold into some of the issues that we're going to be discussing as part of the strategic plan. The Where's Waldo, I feel like we did it. There was a scavenger hunt, but I may be thinking about a school-related scavenger hunt.
We were
in
planning a
Cascade.
scavenger hunt right before COVID hit.
Right,
and-
okay, right,
yeah,
that's what I'm
so-
remembering. So, but
Yeah.
that too folds into part of our goal planning, is to plan those types of events
Mhm.
and to help promote businesses. So let's make note of that so that we can keep those ideas flowing as we get things moving forward finally.
I love your jokes on the sign.
I do too. Do you get those from the internet or does somebody?
Yeah, I have an employee that I think she's in charge of putting it on. When you see it, it's the first time I see it. I have no idea what's going on.
I would
like
say
it.
generally, I don't like those lit up signs, but your business just changed my whole outlook on that.
Okay.
Turn it
Because
around.
I was,
Chuckle,
I-
just see
I'm
chuckle.
old school. I was questioning, is
Nope,
this
love it.
really one? But I've had a lot of positive comments. I don't.
You gotta love humor.
You got
And it's
4
completely
people in our town.
Humor?
You should just say you have.
There's
a
not enough
formal
sarcasm.
committee for it, and
Right.
it gets vetted months in advance.
That's right.
Just
Up
play
or
it up.
down and just like these.
I don't know how you do it, but impressive.
Okay.
Other items before we adjourn? With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Second,
You make the motion?
make a
Yep.
motion to adjourn.
Any second?
I'll second.
Second, third.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, you guys.
Run for dinner.